Welcome to the VMJPod's Employer Brand Series. I'm David Macciocca, and this time I'm joined by co-host Will Innes. Together, we'll dive into the strategies and stories emerging from Brisbane, with lessons that help you build credibility, scale impact, and deliver results.
Well, welcome to the VMJPod series, where we are unpacking employer brand. Very excited to be here. I'm David Macciocca.
I'm Will Innes, and we're delighted to be joined by Emily Millard. Hello, Emily.
Hello, lovely to be here.
Tell us a bit about yourself. Yeah. Introduce yourself.
So I am a senior talent specialist at WorkCover Queensland. I work primarily in the digital and technology space, so love all things software engineering. I have a really warm place in my heart for QAs and testers, but everything kind of digital and technology is what I'm passionate about when it comes to recruitment.
Fantastic.
This is going to be such a good episode, Will.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Because we haven't had someone who's leading talent acquisition.
It's a different angle.
And with the theme in this episode, we're unpacking talent acquisition and the collaboration between talent acquisition and employer branding.
I'm going to jump in. So what's your... do you know what? I think the killer question for me that I was thinking ahead of is how valuable do you think employer branding is for recruitment? Like, is it a nice to have? Is it an essential? Like, where on that scale of importance do you think?
I think it's extremely essential. Employer brand kind of makes my job easier. It means that I can have higher quality conversations with candidates. It reduces my time to hire. It means that candidates have a really good insight into, why my business or the organisation I'm working for is a great place to work. It reduces kind of questions. It makes them feel more comfortable. And it also means that people are selecting out of the process, because we don't want everyone to work for our organisation. We want people to come in really educated, have a really good, truthful, transparent understanding of the business, and employer branding helps us, communicate that story.
Yeah, amazing.
So you've worked at a number of companies, and you've probably seen where it has been done well, and where maybe they're just at the start of their journey to really to put recruiters into those meaningful conversations. What are some of the things that you've seen that in terms of assets that have been built that are mostly valuable for recruiters?
Yeah, I think with assets, it's good to have a collection of things almost in your toolkit that you can leverage, so that you're tailoring it to different stages of the recruitment process, but then also, the specific candidate or conversation that you're having. So
with a job family? With
like a job family, or say you're recruiting for a more senior role and you're targeting someone and they've said during their initial conversation that what's really important to them is work-life balance and, being able to have work fit into their lives and not the other way around. So having some sort of asset or storytelling about, a team member that, shows that kind of work-life balance or flexible working or whatever can be really helpful to then reiterate that message throughout the interview process, and being able to, maybe send that it's a video that you attach for the interview confirmation, or it's a leaflet that you attach when you're sending out the offer, but just having lots of little touch points that reiterate that messaging and really demonstrate through like storytelling and people within the business, I think is really powerful. So in terms of which sorts of assets, I think a mix is really helpful, because different people consume media in different ways. So, some people are, looking at their interview confirmation on their phone, other people are looking at their laptop, and you're not going to be able to know exactly how people are digesting your content. So having a bit of a mixed bag can be really useful, and then tailoring it to the message you're trying to get across.
So if we're thinking about like awareness through to offer and hire, and you can even push in even further, I'm assuming that you want to have the flexibility as a recruiter or leading a talent team where you have content at your disposal to reinforce some messages.
Yeah, so having some, great blog posts, for example, that you can attach to the, thank you message after you've had a really good phone screen with a candidate, or, a follow-up pack that goes through all of the benefits, because you're talking to someone that's working in the data space and that's how their mind works, that they need to be able to kind of see everything clearly laid out, or if you have like a short form video because it's a, more junior or younger talent that's how they like to consume information. I think having lots of different pieces in different forms means that you can create a better, more tailored experience.
And where does this content live?
I think best practice, it's living in your ATS and it's, really easy for you to fire out. But I think you've got to, in some organizations, you just got to work with what you've got and have it set up in a way that it's easily accessible. So if it's, all in your careers site and you can link it back to your careers site and drive traffic there. If it's on, LinkedIn or another tool that you use, having it saved centrally somewhere so you can keep reinforcing the same message, same site,
so
directing traffic to the same place.
So it sounds like you're really working closely with talent acquisition and you're bringing employer brand in and you're seeding it into different moments of the journey. So you've got these different touch points, you've got different assets. Taking a small step back, what kind of processes did you go through to determine what assets get shared? So did you like map out the workflow and think, where can we? There's moments that matter, and did you work?
Look, I probably
like
should
that?
have, and I think if I was going to do it again, I would take that approach.
Oh, that's a good
I
thought.
think it was probably a little bit more ad hoc. I feel.
Did you build on the run?
Yes, sort of built on the run a little bit, and when you're new into an organization, you don't really know all of these things, but as you're there longer and you become more involved in different activities and you learn more of the benefits and what people love about working there, you can kind of get a better understanding of, what the employee value proposition for that organization is. And I think building all of those relationships and having that as your foundation means you can then kind of build the assets around that, which retrospectively probably maybe you should be mapping it, but I think that's how I sort of did it. Is I got a really good understanding of the organization, the people there, what's actually important to them, and then use that to drive the assets and the touch points to make sure that they were aligning to kind of our mission and purpose.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's no right or wrong way, but you just find your way, don't you? And I think you've got to start somewhere. I think that's great validation that you don't need to always do it the other way around. You can find your feet, see what works, test and learn, and build things as you go. So it sounds like you've made lots of progress.
And what's the role with the hiring managers? What sort of role do they play in helping to shape communications?
I think the hiring managers, my role is to support them. They're my stakeholders. So understanding, how their teams interact, how they like to work with people, what sort of, people you're wanting to bring on board is really important, because then you're positioning the role really truthfully to candidates and you're having really clear conversations and able to attract the right sort of talent. So there's that piece, but then also, knowing what's important to the hiring managers and what makes them tick. So, what's my hiring manager saying to this candidate during the interview and what content can I use to back that up in the follow-up, because you know what their messaging is. So that really deep relationship, deep understanding of your hiring managers means that you've got consistent messaging, but then also a consistent onboarding experience and, you're reducing your attrition and la-di-la-da-da.
It's true though, we're laughing about it, but the reality is if you get your messaging right, there's not a misconception and you're not confusing the candidate. We talk about the functional, emotional and social outcomes of our product, but that the product is your hiring manager and you need that consistent message from him. So then when that person or her, when that person joins and comes to, there's not, the promise is met.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that transition piece between, selling the dream during the recruitment process and the reality of the first 3 to 6 months in a role is really important, because, you want to be reducing attrition in probation. We want people coming on board and going, yes, this is exactly what I expected it to be. Nasty surprises or even pleasant surprises aren't what you want. You want people to go in with a full understanding of the organisation. So that having that good relationship, good understanding of the hiring manager is really key.
So once you've gathered the requirements, you're like, okay, there's a gap here, and you have a relationship with someone, marketing or an employee brand or someone in communication, how do you take that requirement to them to seek assistance?
My approach, I like being a bit creative. So usually I'd say, look, this is something that keeps coming up, and I've had this idea for how we could, build out a blog post or do a video that will answer that question and also kind of reinforce that really great benefit that we have or really exciting feature of our company. So that has usually been my approach. And, sometimes with marketing, they're focused on maybe more of a sales component or a different area of the business. So bringing ideas and solutions rather than just going, well, this is something that keeps coming up, fix it. I think that's where sometimes it can get lost between marketing and employer brand, and having someone, if there was someone that's specifically for employer brand, is amazing, but not all businesses have that. So talent sometimes need to be that conduit between the two.
Mm-hmm. So how do you go about building trust with marketing?
Take that for coffee? No.
Whatever works.
No, I think, being able to be data driven. So if there's anything with LinkedIn content or clicks to the website from certain blog posts, I think having that information is really valuable. Getting feedback from candidates throughout, onboarding, throughout the recruitment process, and using that data as well when you're having conversations with marketing makes it a lot easier to have that data to back it up. But then also, if you make promises, I think this is relationships with anyone or any stakeholders. If you make a promise, making sure to deliver or over communicate or asking for help. Marketing are often, really busy and have lots of different conflicting priorities. So I think asking really clearly what you need support with and why, and then showing the data to back that up can help set a really good foundation for a relationship and then building it from there.
And have you seen that done well within a company? And equally, have you and how do, for people who are out there who are listening and they're wanting to have more a better relationship with marketers, or they want content, like how can you what does good look like? Obviously, we established that, but how do we build a relationship so that you've got an ally in the business?
Yeah. It's such a good question. I think with the first step that I would take is doing a bit of an audit of what you've got there already. So what sort of content are marketing producing at the moment, and identifying, any gaps or opportunities that you can build upon or add value. I think the other thing with marketing is not going in and asking for the world straight away. You do need to take small steps and say, look, we get this question from candidates all the time. Could you teach me how to use, a Canva or a Figma, and I can build a one-pager and then you can refine it, or I can give you the content and you can refine it so that we can leverage that going forward. Or, I've got this idea for a Fast Five with different members of our leadership team so we can demonstrate, who they are and really give people a good insight into our team so that, people know who they're going to work for. I've come up with the questions and the format. Do you mind just making that pretty for me? And going with a few different ideas and saying, we can try it. If it doesn't work, my bad, we'll try something else later, but let's see what the data looks like and what the information or feedback from the market is on that. I think going with that sort of approach rather than, hey, this is a question I get all the time from talent, I need you to sort this out, is a little bit better. It softens the blow a little bit. And then the other piece is, if there's any data points that you can take and present back. I think I've said data about 10 times now, but if you can get number of clicks, or there's any information that they can share with you so that you are making really driven decisions and driven recommendations, can help build a better quality relationship.
This episode is brought to you by Video My Job. Introducing the fastest way to turn employee stories into multi-channel content. One video now instantly becomes branded blogs, quote cards, social posts, and more, all perfectly formatted for the channels you use to attract and engage talent. And the best part? Zero editing required. Record once, repurpose everywhere. Book your demo at videomyjob.com and experience the new era of employee content creation.
You don't have like a dedicated someone for employer brand or recruitment marketing. So you're a use case or example of someone that's working ostensibly in a recruitment role, but is doing what they can and pulling bits in from the business, probably on quite low budgets sometimes as well. So maybe how would you frame this for someone that might be in a similar position? There's no additional resources coming. There's no sort of cavalry, but you've got a relationship with marketing. How do you start? How do you operate in that kind of environment? What's your advice to someone that's working in recruitment in those kind of scenarios?
Yeah, I think the very first thing I did was look at what our EVP, to my understanding and to the hiring managers that I'm working with, what that is current state, not worrying about, what it's going to be in the future, but what's our purpose, what's our mission, what are the benefits that we have, why do people love working here, getting a really good grasp of that and having quality conversations with candidates around that. And then in terms of, assets or things that people can use to echo that during a conversation, just starting really simple with, things
version of the EVP, right?
Exactly.
Like, what do we stand for?
What do we stand for?
Yeah.
Things that could be built out on a Canva or a Figma, and you get marketing to build you a template, and then you can input it yourself. And if they need to approve it as a final step, you've kind of done the work. It's not a huge amount of effort, but you could get some direct quotes from your hiring managers, quotes from onboarding surveys around what people are loving, and leverage that. Those are really simple, easy insights into what's making the company a really great place to work, and not a huge amount of effort, a huge amount of time, but can be quite high impact. But on that as well, if you're leveraging it, keep getting feedback, keep iterating. If it's not working, scrap it, fail fast, all of that kind of stuff.
So start with the really authentic story.
Yeah.
And then aim for the consistency, making sure the hiring managers are saying similar things, that the key touch points are aligned to that. And then test and learn and iterate, and that will inform the EVP as you go, see what's working.
Yeah. And I think with the hiring manager piece as well, because they're so heavily involved during onboarding, but then also during the interview, like that's such a key period of time that candidates are getting an insight into your company. So having a really good interview training that maybe doesn't focus much on the technical questions, like that's what they're good at, that's their speciality, but that's, we call the sell. I guess it's probably not the best, but it is the sell, and letting them go back to what they love about working at the organisation, so that it's a really authentic message, but they are trained a little bit or have a few cues not to forget to say that in the interview. I think, hiring managers get really excited interviewing a candidate and forget that it's a two-way street and they're interviewing them as well. So having them prepped and maybe having them with a few talking points or, a few assets as well that they can look at or use or share afterwards, that's really, really helpful and really, I think, beneficial in terms of the conversion rate when it comes to, making an offer.
Yeah. So, look, employer branders are busy. There's so many projects that they could be doing.
Absolutely.
So if you were just what I'm picking up on is content's really important. And if you did have someone who was sitting by your side and you could instruct them to create that one or two assets, can you just reinforce what is something that's really important for you to have in your back pocket?
I'd love a one page, like a really clear one pager that has maybe a couple of employee testimonials, really clearly outlines the benefits that would resonate with the majority of candidates, not everyone, but, things that people are often asking about during an interview, flexible working policy, what does hybrid work look like, how's that structured, career progression, how's that structured, key questions that are often asked during the recruitment process, having an asset that really clearly articulates that could be shared with candidates throughout different stages of the process. I think that would be one. And then
I love that. It's so true because
Like a really detailed FAQ, right? I mean,
well,
it's more
next
than that.
level. Well, you want your employees to be answering the questions. I'm assuming that's where you're going. Like you want to hear from them, boots on the ground, and what it's really like to work within the company. And it could be done in a video, or it could be done just simply by quote cards, and you sort of.
Yeah. And I think, having those benefits rather than just listing them out, you could have them as saying, what impact that had on an individual. So, flexible working means that I get to pick my kids up from school and then, log back on for a little bit in the evening, and means that I've never missed a ballet recital or whatever. I don't have any kids, so I don't know why I use that example. But for me, it means that I get to, do all my runs in the morning and then still log on for work and crash in the afternoon because that's when my brain stops working. That it's that storytelling from the individuals that's impacting within your team.
Yep, I love that. That's really, really, really neat. Yep, and I agree. I mean, more stories that you can share it just pushes them further down the funnel, doesn't it? And that's what you want to do. You want to be able to attract the best talent, have the most meaningful conversations, and when you make an offer, they accept the offer.
Yeah, you want the decision pretty much already made.
Yeah.
That they're,
And I find when we're talking to candidates, the more they know about us, the more we're winning the race, because the less they know about their competitors, or the competitors that we're competing with.
Exactly. And sometimes, it helps if there's limits around salary or you're working to, salary ranges. But I think salary is one factor, but in a lot of cases, people would rather have some flexible work or other benefits as opposed to just that, and it can bridge those conversations if you've really embedded what their work life's going to be, and they're going to be so happy.
Yep.
Because that's, I think, what people want is they just want to enjoy coming to work and work with lovely people.
Have you seen employer brand activities done well from an internal perspective?
I definitely have seen some really cool examples. I think internal mobility, people knowing what opportunities are available within the organisation. We often, default to recruiting externally for a role when we've got people that already are bought into the brand, already bought into the business, but the only reason that they're thinking about maybe moving on is that lack of career progression. So I think having conversations with internal team members, advertising internally, making sure that people know stories of people that have transitioned into other areas. Technology is a really good one for that, because people often like to take a sidestep and explore a different area of tech, go from data to cloud, or go from software engineering into AWS or something like that. Yeah. And having known that that's something people have done in the past and someone's taken that step before through, different assets that are shared internally is really helpful.
And there's wonderful stories about that as well, because once that person moves into a new role, there's possibly a story behind that.
Yeah.
They might have had to study externally, or they might have done a part-time job, or they might have done that in their previous role and they took a sideways step into this. It's really fascinating people's journeys and their unique stories. And I think that should be celebrated as well, not just advertising a role, but it's like, how did you get, I suppose, promoted?
Yeah.
Or what's the story behind the move?
Yeah. And I guess the layer with that as well is if it's something the business has helped them with, that's an incredible, benefit. Like that's, if an organisation is going, your passion area is this, like these are the steps that we've got in place to help you get there. We can give you some study leave. We can make sure that you've got access to, a mentor internally, which can sometimes be more, beneficial than formal training, like having someone that they can partner with. This is someone that's done it in the past that's going to be your coach, and we can map out a bit of a plan for you. Having those people then move into those roles, being the interviewers, is another story that they can then tell during the interview process. And it kind of is that cyclical thing that kind of builds on itself. And
it just takes the edge off the recruiters having to, that person just leaves because there's an opportunity externally when it wasn't presented internally, and they leave, and then you have to recruit that role again. And we all know how hard it is to get good tech people. It's very hard. Getting them to start again, it's like there's a massive it's time before they start really adding value. It could be 6 months, 12 months before they're really impacting projects.
Yeah, and they already know, the values of the organisation. They know the people that might be able to add value from the team that they've just come from. Like, I think people often think that you might not have a fresh perspective if you've been working for that organisation already, but you're coming from a different lens because you've worked with a different team, you've worked with different leaders, you've probably worked on different projects, so you can bring those fresh perspectives to your new role, which, boosts morale in that team, is probably, helpful in lots of different ways.
Quick question. What do you think's changing or has changed recently about what people want at work? And like, has that impacted how you're talking and the messages you're giving about your organisation? Like, there's so much change in work right now. Yeah. Work's being redesigned, what people want from work. Like, what have you noticed is that showing up differently for you?
I think one thing people are really clinging on to at the moment is stability, and they're looking for, longer term, is my job secure? Do I, will I be challenged? What's the options beyond that within the organisation? I think going back to our point around internal mobility and career progression, we hear that a lot. And post-COVID, flexibility is still very much a topic. I think a lot of organisations are going back into the office more frequently, but not necessarily, 9 to 5 slave to the desk. So I think, having...
And I agree. I mean, like, people just don't know there's so much change that is occurring. Like, even if you throw in AI and how people are feeling about how the efficiency that may or may not happen for their role because their role might be taken away, or it could be a real bonus if they do introduce some sort of efficiency through technology like AI. There's a bit of uncertainty. I
think people with that just want transparency. Like, they don't have to completely agree with maybe your work from home policy, but as long as you're being really clear up front with where it is, or if there are changes coming to that, and not promising someone the world and then them coming on board and it not being the same. I think just being really clear about where you're at as a business, what that looks like, managing expectations so that people can make really educated decisions is really important. That transparency piece. Yeah. I've been really fortunate to work in organisations that have always been really clear with their team. We've had a really good oversight of kind of what's going on at a strategic business level, which I think is really reassuring when there's so much uncertainty, to have kind of know the bigger picture as to why there's all those little changes happening internally.
A follow-up question is, have you had any sort of aha moments as a recruiter that's gone, wow, the employer brand messages that I'm using or the stories that I'm using have really made a difference to how I'm recruiting here? So it might not be in the metrics, but have you had that sort of self-reflection where you've gone, God, I think this really made a difference. Like, I wish more people did more of these things. But yeah, any kind of moments for you? Anything that's really struck you?
Yes, I've had an aha moment. It was
Tell us all about it.
Let's get into it. No, it was, I hired someone in the engineering team, and then it became this kind of, it was almost a joke how many, like, they referred someone who then referred someone great, who referred someone great. None of them had kind of all worked together in one instance, but it just became this almost chain reaction.
You hit a pocket.
I hit a pocket, and it was amazing. And it was because they all were really resonating with the values of the organisation, and then kind of the social component as well, and the culture that they had there. There were people that had moved from Brisbane to Melbourne. They didn't have, huge networks, so they wanted to work in a company where they could get really involved with, the social component, go to different meetups, like the things that organisation did really well. So that was a bit of an aha moment, because the storytelling obviously resonated from referral to referral to referral, and we ended up bringing some really great people on board who did amazing work, got great feedback. One of them ended up being my interviewer, so then I knew that she was continuing to say that messaging during interviews, which makes you feel really great. So that was, now that I think about it, that was a really good aha moment.
Yeah, right. And it shows, so many things in there. Relationships, the social element.
Telling the story.
Yeah.
Advocacy.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
All those worlds cross over.
Exactly. And they were people that ended up, I think one was on the social team, another one, always would put their hand up to represent at conferences and meetups. So, they were great at what they did in terms of being developers, but then broader, value to the organisation. They were doing all the extras that made it a great place to work. So they're kind of building on the reason that they joined, which was amazing.
It is good. I think that's a really good way to end this episode because stories matter, and the right stories that are truthful really resonate and then attract other people that have similar values. And it's really amazing to hear that employer brand can be so impactful to a talent acquisition team.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing all your insights and stories today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been fun.